And we're back with the stats and the facts and your war boss hacks. Welcome to the rise of the green tide. Whoa! All right, everybody, we're back with our WAAAGH Wednesdays. We have a greater image and a greater understanding of where our orcs are at right now and our possible upcoming predators. So here you can see post data slate, we're at a 53% win rate. I know some of you might be confused and say, well, in the video I've seen from Auspex Tactics, there was a chart and Orks were at 56% win rate. We're not sure exactly how GW conglomerates their stats. We know they take casual games to an extent, RTTs and everything. This is out of the GT Leviathan pack. These are what the stats are according to Meta Monday. So Orks had three very good performing lists this week. We're going to go over a couple of those lists. Also, my flavor of the week list, and we're going to peep at Tyler Russo's $1 billion clown farm performance at the SoCal Open. Of course, like I like to say, as you can see here, we're at 53% win rate. We like that. You can see if you look up through this, there's 55, 56, Chaos Marines. We know about that. Eldar, Leagues of Voltan is creeping up. Black Templars, even though they're a sub-faction with the Marines, it's still important to pay attention to. Which means, hey, we're not necessarily right in the target for the next upcoming nerfs, but we are in like the top 5 of factions that GW is going to be taking a look at, right? And we're going to be, you guys know the theme already. We know beast Snaggas are one of those units that directly is going to get hit, but there's other units we're going to talk about today that we can see already people adjusting into that we did earlier and we did our predictions. Now, if you haven't seen this before, we like to do the stats based off faction versus factions versus orcs. That way we can see our natural predators, right? So these are post data slate stats right here. Our new predators that I like to point out so far have been Astra Militarum seems to making its creep in again, 34% win rate. That's about the same as last week. Another one is Chaos Space Marines. You guys know what's going on there. Usually Black Legion, maybe some Word Bearers, stuff like that. Very strong gun platforms, but at the same time, I think we do have play into them. But Death Guard, for sure, something that we pointed out in the prediction videos. Death Guard having the different durability capabilities, having Mortarion, having indirect fire from the Plague Burst crawlers, with being able to stack -1 to hit and -1 to your melee and ballistic weapon skill, means that they can essentially stack -2 onto orcs, which is horrible considering we want to play one phase of the game very well. I do point out Grey Knights once in a while here. This is a skill-based stat check to me in a certain sense most of the times in the game, but as a whole, Orks do have great capability to beating Grey Knights at the top end of the game, usually with just board controls, really good screening. It's more of like who plays the movement phase better in that game a lot of the time, and allocating resources when your Orks really do got to dissect the Terminators when they get the chance. And then Leagues of Voltan. Everybody knows Leagues of Voltan's coming up. As you can think, Grey Knights I've just talked about Leagues of Voltan, stuff like that. This is why I think getting our AP -2 is very important coming up. And the Space Marines, all of a sudden, Space Marines are starting to come even on us on our victories, which is important because naturally, Orks actually are one of the Marine. We like to predate on Marines usually. And then right here, as you can see, Tyranids. Shouldn't surprise anybody considering that they have a whole codex that just came out. And you know, some work players just don't know exactly what's happening with the new different hive fleets and such. Do I think we can take them? A lot of the time, yes. But when someone has a whole bunch of new set of rules, they have more tools and diversity in there, and that's going to take player learning the actual detachment capabilities and then having the necessary tools, such in my opinion, as obviously we know about beast Snaggas and Nobz and such. So pay attention to Astra Militarum, Chaos Marines, Grey Knights to an extent, Leagues of Voltan, I think Space Marines, that might change interestingly enough, and Tyranids. Why do I say pay attention to this? Doesn't mean you're automatically going to lose when you see them against you guys. It means we start to learn their rules, memorize them, and then we can start coming up with ways to play against them, as you can see top performing players have done. So the first thing I want to do is actually go over Richie Balain, right, at the battlefield in Brigham. Sorry, I'm done reading horribly. All right, but right away, I just want to look at his list, right? Ghazghkull Thraka. Whoa! You guys know I'm always hyped about Ghaz in a certain extent. I actually gave him a nice little A-tier, knob tier rating in the tier list video recently, and that's for a good reason. I think he does start filling some of the holes that Orks are going to have in some of these harder matchups that we're running into. And here you can see triple Warboss. Again, another version of the triple Warboss. It's obvious why you want the Warboss, to be honest, for 65 points, making the unit that he's in way more reliable in combat, mitigating even Death Guards -1 to hit. 2 unit of Beast Snagga boys, which interestingly enough don't have a character support, but that's because sometimes you just want their strength, right? That different than strength threshold from 5 to 6 during the WAAAGH matters a lot in some of these matchups. as well as these multiple unit of boys. Then you have a burner boy unit. Surprisingly enough, burner boys are starting to make their way again more and more often into these high-end lists. And even me, I know I find myself kind of not looking at burner boys too much. Me and the Discord go back and forth sometimes about it. And I'm really starting to have to pay more of attention to this. I think it really does come down to you do need to utilize every phase of 40K to a certain extent. And Orks, we don't have reliable shooting. Therefore, you need to do something in the shooting phase sometimes. Burner boys seem to be one of those units for that reason. Actually, I was making sure I didn't skip the vehicles. Okay. Then we have triple units of Gretchen. No minute to me, no less than 20. You don't know why? I can rant on it, but we're gonna keep going. 2-man unit of Mega Nobz, just to pretty much escort Ghazghkull. 2 units of Storm Boys, and then here's the real kicker, guys. 5 trucks and 2 battle wagons. Yes, 7 transports. Fantastic. Now, what's getting transports most likely in here? We have trucks for the burner boys. We have the triple war boss and boys combo. That would surprise people if you were told someone in the meta that, hey, I'm just going to have a war boss and pay for a typical boys unit for that. The skirmishing of that unit is punching up and winning on OC. It's great. You get the truck for scoring secondaries as well. This unit is just an MSU. I'm going to skirmish you, beat you up all over the table, and then I have Ghaz to throttle the time that I throttle with his aura capability, essentially, of giving lethals during the WAAAGH, and that's very important. And then Ghaz himself giving that kind of different profile for damage is very necessary. What I'm finding interesting is there's not even the Nobz on this list. That's something that I personally like to really see on these lists, and there's no Nobz. So, but there are burner boys for clearing. So right away, let's look at actually some of his matchups. Interestingly enough, we get to see what the missions were for this actually terrain, this list, because they actually show. So right away, just for people who care, I'm off the top of their head, we have Sleepy Engagement for the game 1. Dawn of War, game 2, deployment. These are where the deployments they're going to be, and then the mission sites of power. You can see, take a quick look, and I'm gonna go over them as I look at the list. But there's going to be something new I'm trying just for this event, just for this list, because they posted them. We'll see how I do while keeping that in mind. So his first matchup going into Purge the Foe, and interestingly enough, is Knights. So we have the primary mission on this one is Purge the Foe, going into Sweeping Engagement as the deployment. So we have a Knight Crusader, a Knight Warden, 2 Helvrins, 4 Warglaves, and then an Assassin. Okay, this is actually a pretty kind of typical Imperial Knights list. And to be honest, and actually we can actually see the terrain here. Nice. Interestingly enough, they did show the terrain. They said right here, it says, if you can read it, Saturday will be 1 and then 2. So you'll see terrain layout 1. So the missions were either on this deployment terrain or on this terrain. So for Imperial Knights on this terrain, it's actually not that bad, as some people would probably be used to in previous older editions of the game where it'd be terrible terrain. You can see the terrains are actually pretty nice, pretty well set up. And with this deployment zone, you're not really getting great lines of sight on the Orks, even in their deployment zone. I would really have liked to know who went first here, but Knights are not one of our main predators anymore, surprisingly enough. Going into this game, Richie did go ahead and put up a 96-point win. I would like to actually go into his second game right away, as we have the Chaos Marines. Here we go. And this was Dawn of War deployment. Mission rule was Vital Ground. So this is actually a 4-objective mission. So we have Chaos Lord, Warp Smith, Cultist Mob, 2 units of Chaos Rhinos, Chosen, another unit of Chosen. Okay, this is okay. That's actually quite competitive. Forge Fiends, Obliterators, 2 units of Obliterators, Warp Talons, Nurglings, Silax. Okay, this is actually a pretty good list right here that he's going into right away into that second game. The one thing is, the Orks can still win in these skirmish battles versus these specific Chaos Marine units. And even with their very effective firepower, those units aren't really trading their firepower necessarily into what they're going into. Obliterators don't have good range, so Orks, once they start to close the distance, they start to actually outplay the mission on them. They do have some interesting marks that you have to pay attention for them falling back and shooting. They have the capability to regen some of those Obliterators. They have the capability to advance and charge in this army. But as a whole, they look like they were trying to actually skirmish as well. As you see, triple Chaos Lords, the Warp Smith. You've seen that they actually had kind of skirmishing units as well, which was interesting. But I could see how he ended up winning this one, because if you have Warbosses and all those units, themselves can be dissecting those units in those skirmishes. You also have the reliable fight and death. They actually have to roll off for their fight and death. So going into and he got a 95-point win there. Going into his third matchup, he had Eldari. So we have the Incarn Fusion. I believe this guy actually comes back from the dead. Now I understand what he does. The Spirit Hero, Avatar of Cain, a Warlock, 3 units of Swooping Hawks, Wraithguard, Fire Prism, and Night Spinner. Okay, the Night Spinner is making a come through for reducing movement. Kind of new Wraithguard. What are these with the cannons? The cannons. So his real only melee, okay, but he has both the Avatar and Yang Karn. Interestingly enough, Ghaz does have the capability to kind of fight and go to toe with these units in a certain extent, especially if they're in the wall. He gets a little lucky, gets some Devwound, those Mega Knot bodyguards are still alive, right? As they would translate over the Devwound capability to him during the wall. As for the skirmishing part of this game, think about how many transports there were on the list we were looking at. 2 battle wagons and 5 trucks. How are you going to stop these units from actually closing the distance? And this is where I can understand Burner Boys having their own version of capability on here. When you're going against some of these units, hey, I can reliably actually kind of burn some of these small scoring units. And then when it comes down to the fight, that's where Ghaz might actually have pulled through and pulled some wins of his own. That would have been a very interesting game to actually learn about and pay attention to. Very fun, very fun. I like that. But he did put up 91 points into that list. Let me close some of these lists because I had kept them all open for a second. Don't want to get lost in the sauce, boys. That's fantastic. Ghaz with triple war bosses, guys. That's just so thematic. If you're an orc like person in general, like you understand the orc lore and everything, that's exactly what a major great wall would be. It would be Ghaz being followed by a bunch of awesome war bosses into a fight, and then their mobs of boys. So we got his fourth matchup, Chaos Demons. Honestly, Chaos Demons are usually not super difficult for Orc, but usually they have a lot of beast Snaggas, Squighog boys and such. So we have Be'lakor, the Great Unclean One, Pharaoh's Fate Weather, Lord of Change, Silax, and Blue Scribe, Nurgling, Blood Crushers, Burning Chariots, Flamers, Flesh Hounds. Okay. So I'm just giving a little quick peek. Now, this was interesting because they don't actually have, I mean, yeah, they don't have anything that's specifically just one-shotting Ghaz either, or popping all. Remember, guys, those transports are going to be able to put tank shock into these kind of monsters that they decide to fight. You could try to get mortal wounds that way. You can always throw grenades into these things. So just because you don't see anti 4+ monster, anti 4+ such, because there's no Squighog boys on the list we were looking at for this player, it doesn't matter because you can chip them down. All of these small units are actually losing their skirmishes, as we like to talk about skirmishes, the transport capability of getting all over the table, just straight up playing the mission, even if you can't kill everything. You're going to OC it with this other list. And the Flamers, again, can actually come into play on this list, interestingly enough, which is why I'm kind of smiling here, because this was actually his best performing game. He put up 100 points going into that one. And that mission was mission number 4. So Crucible of Battle, Sweep and Clear. Yeah. Taking hold. Okay, so this mission is just like the deployment wasn't really too close to each other. There's enough missions in the middle of the board that they're going to have to fight for it in skirmish. They're going to be spread out with each of the individual monster. If you end up tearing one of those down, you're really going to be in a good spot in that game as well. So I'm really appreciating this list because it actually had a pretty good match. It had some, not the hardest matchups we see, but we see even very difficult matchups that most people will be sweating about. And he's getting a great job into all of these. So this is game number 4, Hammer Anvil deployment with the mission rule is priority targets. Or sorry, the primary mission is primary targets, and then mission rule is secret intel. Sorry, I'm reading my notes. So we have Grey Knights. So we were just seeing how the Orcs actually have a hard time against Grey Knights when we were looking at the stats. What our possible natural predators could be. This is one of those things where if you have 5 transports and you have those wagons, Grey Knights suffer with actually trying to pop all of our transports. Most armies are going to have a difficulty with that, but Grey Knights are going to have directly a real problem with that. And just for everybody's sake, in my opinion, Ghaz can go on a battle wagon, but actually we should look at these hard case because he might not have put them in there. Because he'd have just very much not put them. They're hard case, so he didn't put them in there. I think he could, just so you guys think if he don't. But I've been thinking if you're going to play Ghaz, there's no problem with just putting him in the reserves and ingressing him either. So very much I can see him being played that way, or just Kool-Aid Manning through the middle of the terrain, just running through the buildings. So either way, him on the table, here we go. That's how he's going to end up getting around. So we got Brother Captain, Librarian. This is like their only little version of destroying vehicles. Castellan Crow, multiple Terminator squads, but they're 5-man units. Strike Marines, Inceptors Marines. It's these are very necessary for them to play, but for us as orcs, we're like, oh, as soon as we can close the distance on you, we're crumping. That's just a straight trade for us. That's just a straight trade. More times than not, we're just beating up those units. Even with our leftover trucks, they're just getting, if they're getting charges off, we're mortal wounds on there, getting stuck. They're not popping our trucks. Even it's kind of hilarious. They do have the paladins that you do have to pay attention for. They're going to be playing, and these purgation squads have pretty good fire. Actually, these purifiers actually were the ones that have the real firepower. But he does, as you've seen with all those skirmishing kind of lists, as we like to talk about, what do skirmishes mean? It means the unit that you're trying to get into fights with is sitting somewhere between 100, anywhere from like 85 to like 150 points, and they require usually more commitment than they're worth. Is the optimal kind of skirmishing unit, and then they're going to beat up on all units within their point ranges, give or take. So orcs are just winning a lot of these little skirmish kind of battles all over the field in a funny way for primary or in a straight offensive kind of capability. So these purifiers, even though they're dangerous, we don't have a lot of stuff on there that they're going to be able to care to throttle into too much. Maybe Ghaz would be like a little annoying. Inquisitor Codiaz, he's actually pretty awesome. He has like little dev wounds and everything. He's kind of hilarious. Oh, and he causes you to gain, as the player gains CP, Codiaz gives the player who has him CP as well. So it's kind of funny. And then Inquisitoria Henchmen. So yeah, Grey Knights, they get they are orc kind of predator to an extent. I think that's more of like a skill-based thing. And the fact that they're kind of janky and they're really just playing the movement phase. And if you're kind of like a casual player and such, you'll run into them and you'll just be like, oh, what the heck? You can land right here and move this time, and I'm trying to close the distance on you, and you moved away from me, and it was kind of like a gimmicky moment. That's kind of why I think Grey Knights aren't really a huge problem. But yeah, great job to Richie. He did go 5-0. It's fantastic. I really appreciated his list that had Ghaz, and there's other lists that have Ghaz on here as well. So let me take a peep. I'm going to set up who's going on next. The next list we're going to talk about, let me close some of these. I didn't do a good job of referencing I'll just say right now, I didn't do a good job of referencing the tab that had the missions and everything like that, guys. But you can look it up on there as well, and I gave it a peek, but it was kind of weird to go back and forth. It was different for me. This will be the next game we go into, which is James Ball. But let me see what the chat said. And if you guys got any questions, comments, or Let's see. I like the thing Makari calls my wall. Orks. Let me get a wall right here, guys. I don't have to walk. Whoa! All right. The strongest ankle bodybuilders of all time is for the wall, guys. All right. Let me just, before I get lost in the sauce, continue with this, and we'll summarize real questions, deep questions in the end. So going into our second list, another very exciting list, guys. This is going to pretty much be my flavor list. Let me click the. And we have, again, Ghazghkull Thraka. Sorry, I dropped something. All right. So here we have, this looks like a very similar list to Sean Naden. It's a list that we've seen actually last week, but it's not necessarily the same. And it'll be a funny reason why. So we have Ghazghkull Thraka, Captain Badrock, Nobz with Wall Banner, Warbosses, Follow Me Led. We have 3 trucks. That's kind of like the key point where I like to be, 3 to 4. And we have a Burna-Bommer. What's going on? This is my flavor. Whoa! Didn't catch all you guys off guard with that, didn't I? Nobody's seen this coming. You guys thought it was gonna be Death Copters or something silly. No, he brought a whole Burna-Bommer. All right, but let's continue before we get stuck on that. Flash gets 2 units of Gretchen, Grot tanks, or you got lovers. Yeah, so we got a little, of course, with the rockets. I like one with the rockets, no question here. Going back on my tier list, maybe these guys should have been A tier. I might have been slept in a little bit on them. Commandos. I like to see the commandos are coming back up into the meta. People are trying to play that mid table, be prepared for like the Tyranids, the Space Marines, possibly all these different units that are trying to play. Then we have Mega Nobz going with the gas. So we have 3 kill saws and then quill saws plus power claw. Okay. So he had saws, but yeah, that was weird. That's a weird combo, but I'm down with that. Only 1 mech gun, probably just for points variety. Nobz right here, big unit. 2 Scapel units of Nobz. I love that. I'm surprised. I mean, as you see, he doesn't have Storm Boys. He doesn't have any of that. And I believe he has the War Boss, and then he has a Nobz with Wall Banner for a double wall with Nobz. whoa, that really did catch me off guard, to be honest. I don't know who really saw that coming, but I've heard people talk about it. People have talked about what if I run multiple what if I run Nobz and then I run the actual wall with wall banner to give them another one. I've been considering like, man, even though it does get you to the strength 10 threshold, you are still hitting on 4s during that. You do get more attacks though and a different kind of durability. You could always hard as nails. Oh, and I was always back and forth on it, but to see someone actually perform on it is encouraging and humbling, and should make everybody feel like, yeah, just use whatever you really want to use. As for the Burna-Bommer, it pretty much until the end of the turn cannot receive the benefit of cover. In addition, for that, roll d6. So anybody that it moves over in your normal move, you can select one any movement you moved over, and they do not receive the benefit of cover. That's what the Burna-Bommer does. As for his shooting, I mean, he just has some Scorcher missiles, some strength 5 shots, some interesting super shooters. They have some twin links, some have ignore fire cover. It's a decent volume of shots, but I mean, it's still hitting on 5s. So it's very much just a plane with a different kind of ability. I guess ignoring cover actually low key might be freaking awesome for the flash gets. You get to ignore cover and then have -1 AP. So that might have actually been an interesting kind of different kind of tech piece, to be honest. Still seems to like, oh, also you're making the grot tanks not get that. I mean, he could have been cooking with some fire right there, guys. The mech guns get to ignore cover. So, hey, I mean, you've drawn diverse some firepower. He doesn't really have that many transports, but I mean, this list is kind of hilarious. So let's look into some of his matchups, right? But Burna-Bommers ignore cover. They don't get the benefit of cover, and then the Orks get to shoot him, I guess. So that's an interesting tech piece. So let's see his first matchup. Right away, we got the new White Scars Gladius. Wait, is that new? That's not even new. And well, calling them White Scars just felt like it was new. All right, so we got Terminator's Captain with the Relic Shield, an Honor Veerman, Librarian, Judiciar. Sorry, this is a little jumbled. 10 Assault, Intercessors, one with a Thunder Hammer. Some more Assault Intercessors, 2 Impulsors, Terminator unit, Outride, Blade Guard veteran, sorry. Repulsor Executioner, Gladiator Valiant, a Storm Speeder, Thunderstrike. Yeah, sorry, it was written kind of weird, guys. So this is just trying to do what White Scars do. Sorry, I said it was new, but it's not. This isn't, in my opinion, not that I'm trying to talk down anybody. You start off the tournament, you don't always go against the most brutal, competitive list. Assault Intercessors aren't really doing a good job into Orks as a whole. You're not going to get good trades. We're not really worried about Blade Guards or Outriders. And as a whole, they're just not getting good trades and shots on that. It's just interesting. It is fun to play White Scars. I'm into that. They might be a little stronger coming forward. But that's okay. Overall, he got 94 points into that. Just want to take them down real quick. I think overall, Orks just do really well into Space Marines. Especially when we start to bring the AP, as you see from Ghaz, as you see from the Warboss here on this list, and Flash Gets are actually pretty awesome, obviously, with their damage 2, strength 6. So this is his second matchup. Second matchup. He goes into Grey Knight. So we got Castellan's Chrome, Brother Champion, Brother Librarian, Grandmaster, and Nemesis Dread Knight. Okay. I'm not sure exactly how competitive these are. I don't usually think they are, and whenever I see them in the game as an Ork player, I'm just like, whatever, I'll kill that thing. Not really usually imposing in any kind of way. Bunch of different units of Strike Marines, not necessarily the most meta or competitive. Inceptors are fine for scoring, running around. Purifier Squad, as we talked about them, and a bunch of Dread Knights. So this is actually just off the wall, different kind of Grey Knights list. And as still respectable, because Grey Knights do have some good shenanigans and scoring capabilities at all time, and this person might be trying to optimize that with this kind of weird, kind of different way to play. Maybe he got tired of not being good at killing stuff that has high toughness, so he's trying with these Dread Knights, but it's a different kind of Grey Knights list, and he did punish him for that because he put up 100 points on that, as he should. Going on to his third matchup, he has World Eaters. World Eaters are a slept-on faction that some people kind of underestimate a lot, and I don't think they should. So we got Angron, we got Lord Avocado, World Eaters Demon Prince with Helm of Brazen Ire. This guy I think is actually pretty key for World Eaters. If you ever see a World Eaters list and they have this, know that the guy's playing serious. No, I'm just kidding. But The whole point is this guy actually has a 6-inch aura of a 4-up invuln that he's giving up. This enhancement gives him, I think, 2-up armor save and halves damage. So this actually makes him very durable. He can hide behind a piece of terrain, give a nice aura, have things string out to him. It becomes very, very annoying. Then we have Master of Executions. They're always pretty good. And then this guy, the one with the favored by Corn enhancement, I guess that's fine. I think they have better. Overall, they're still pretty good. I'm surprised they didn't bring the relic of the melee relic, but overall, Master of Executions have great capabilities. So we have Jackals and then Corn Berserkers, just a big brick. Usually, you bring these just to kind of deliver the Master of Executions because this gets to move when they shoot, of course. 8 bound, 1 unit of big Terminators from, well, not big, sorry, 1 unit of Terminators. Then we have allied units already, 2 units of Flesh Hounds, and Karnak. So this list is very much going into the characters fighting with the demon. I don't think there's enough on this list to really take advantage of this worldy aura. Just not enough Jackals and everything. But people sleep on Angron. People sleep on these guys' capability as a whole as an army, having been able to fight in death, being able to get very similar rules as the Orks get and want to play a weird kind of aggro counter-charging game into us is weird because we're usually the ones that want to aggro people, but these guys can actually advance and charge the whole game, so it makes them kind of different. World Leaders should be respected. That's a different list, not usually with the what we're seeing all the time, but it is a faction to be beholden of. Now, games 4, we have, what was that one I just clicked? No, okay. We have the Chaos Knights. So let's see what kind of Chaos Knight spam. So we have a Stalker, War Dogs with Brigand. How many Brigands are this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Goodness. 6. Goodness. All right, dude. All right. All the Brigands, man. I mean, they are very, very effective hitting on 2s with those rep weapons and everything, but dang. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, of course. The Carnivores. This is actually a highly competitive Chaos Chaos Knights list, in my opinion. I've seen these on the table. They're very, very efficient in most ways. They're playing the mission because they have so much OC and there's so many of them. And then the Nurglings actually help them in certain ways with even making you -1 to hit or stuffing you a little bit where they can your deployment, screening for themselves. It's very hilarious. And then the Changeling. So this is actually a very, very good list that he's been playing into. Is this game 4? Yeah, so this is his game 4, but he put up 98 points into that list, which is very impressive. And that's where possibly having the double knob wall, because then they have their strength 10 again. So instead of caring that they're hitting on 4s, you're just happy that they're wounding on 4s instead of on 5s into those little knights as well. Ghaz is tearing through them. If you're hoping Makari's that 2-up invul really comes in play here. And I mean, Captain Badrock, to be honest, and his gits can actually tear down some of those walkers. So I mean, it's target priority, taking down maybe the melee ones, so you can just run forward and try to play the mission. Because ultimately, all those brigands have no melee weapons. So if he was just target priority, correct against these Chaos Knights, all the little knights with the Carnivores are getting tore down by the Orks, even without beast Snaggas. Like I said, guys, always remember, you can throw grenades, you can tank shock them with your trucks. It's hilarious. The battle wagons can do it, everything. All those transports are hard for those knights to pop reliably sometimes, so it's kind of pretty awesome. That's a fantastic win right there. And then his last matchup is, actually, was that last matchup? Sorry, I clicked that. That was goofy of me. Sorry, that was the last matchup. No wonder why it was a good one. Yeah, okay. He did win, obviously, but it was a 68-point win right there. Great job by him. That was a very good way to end it at the end. Oh no, he did play twice. It was 2. Aha. I did not trick myself. That's what I thought. He actually had to play against 2 Chaos Knights list. Nice. Okay, so the difference it looked exactly the same. That almost caught me off guard. I was like, did I misclick? Which is hilarious. Now you guys know what I got to deal with. Yeah, it looks like these guys just brought the same exact thing. Yes, they brought the same exact thing. So the mission might have made the difference here, or just the straight up skill of the player. It looks like that guy actually ended up coming in second, that he ended up losing to. Very super close game, 68 to 61. That could have gone either way, but great job, James Ball. It was very awesome to see that. I'm very happy with that Ork list. I love the knob with wall banner. I'm very happy to see that Ghaz is making his appearance more and more right now. I know people were kind of sleeping on Ghaz for a while and they weren't happy with him. The knob with wall banner, people laugh at me when I brought him, but no, he's pretty great. Warbosses. Warbosses making their appearance everywhere. And then the Burna-Bommer. I mean, is that a real tech piece or was this just like a one-off thing, guys? You guys let me know in the comments. Tell me what you think, but the Burna-Bommer is really awesome. Of course, we got the Grot Tanks also on this list. It's a great job by James Ball. That was actually a very exciting list. It was my favorite list of the week as well. I wanted to make sure I picked that one. And then here we have our third list, and this was a very good performing list by Matt Barnett at the Hive Slayer. He did get first place here, and you can see he put up 3 100s, which is very, very impressive. And then even with his slightly lower scoring games, he was in the mid 80s. So let me take a quick peep at what the comments say. What you guys are saying, we got whoa. We're actually with this. What do you think? Sleeper units. I'm gonna do a video on Friday. I'm gonna talk about the off meta. So units that actually are getting played less that actually are pretty awesome. But as we see here, some of these units that I would already call off meta are creeping their way in. I mean, people would kind of look at me twice when I would mention Ghaz, and now with wall banners and mega knobs, and now you're seeing that they're actually making their way. Here we go, a unit in a transport or in deep strike? No, they has to be on the board in the command phase, I believe it's when it says. And when you're in the transport, you would be giving it to the transport, and that you can't do that. So because we're within it. I don't know where you heard that you can't. I've never heard it played that way, but I mean, I've heard some crazy things from TOs. So yeah. So far, guys, yeah, we're going to talk about the like off meta units, but as a whole, it's just kind of funny about this week after I did the tier list video and everything. Some of those off meta units that I was going to mention are starting to creep their way up into the game. So you can call me a brain boy because I've been making these predictions and they be coming through. So let's take a look at his list. And we're back to a Beast Snagger list with this one, which, there's nothing wrong with that. Beast Snaggers are freaking awesome. I know I like my Beast Snaggers. I'm still showing that there's still the viability in that as well. I'm always preaching about knobs, mega knobs. We need the AP, a different kind of durability, but I'm still very high on Beast Snagger boys, and there's always a reason for that. So we got the dual Beast Bosses, Beast Boss and Squig Sword with Edwapa, Skill Chopper, and Mazrog, 1 unit of Nobz and Smash Squig with Follow Me Lads, and then we got double Warbosses. So even in this unit, Beast Snagger type unit, you can still fit multiple Warbosses. Cunning but brutal. That's interesting to bring. I'm not against it. And then Weird Boy. Weird Boy, is he soloing today? So we got 1, 2. Looks like he's soloing today. Yeah, there's no boys for him. I mean, it looks like he's just playing the mission. 2 units of Beast Snaggers for those Beast Bosses. We got 4 trucks, 2 units of Gretchen, and then we have 1 big unit of Scapel Knob unit, and then we actually have a small unit of Nobz. So that's interesting. They still have the power claws, but I very much believe the war bosses are still going in those units. Then we have 1 big unit of Squig Hog boys, and then just 1 truck. So this unit is just straight Beast Snaggers with some APCs. Even then, we can see though, is why I really wanted to show this list, is you can see you really want the AP, even though you're bringing the very reliable anti-monster, anti-vehicle units. You're bringing the nice feel no pains. You're bringing the mobility of these mounted units, but at the same time, and you're bringing obviously the beast bosses for the dev wounds, war bosses, Nobz, just find their way straight up in there to really deal with those problematic units that are taking 2-up saves and have armor of contempt or void armor and such like that. So let's look at some of his matchups, but we can't actually look at his first one nor his fourth one, sadly, because the person's gone when you click it. Boop, boop, and that's submitted. So we'll go straight into his second matchup that he also got a 100-point game on. Doop. And these are Blood Angels with the Gladius Task Force. I think Gladius is still pretty powerful. So we'll see what's going on here. We have the Apothecary Biologist, Commander Dante, Tech Marine, and the Sanguinor. Sanguinor is hilarious when he's his ability, guys. You don't know what Sanguinor does. He just comes in, I believe, from like reserves when someone gets in fight in one of his units or some hilarious rule like that. I know like right now there's some competitive kind of thought the setting, but I remember when I was reading his rules, I was like, that's freaking awesome. This guy just comes out of the sky. So Sanguinor! I'm like, okay. Orks would find that hilarious too. So Heavy Intercessor Squad. We got the Impulsors, and then we got, sorry, this is a lot of text lettering. Goodness, but I got you guys. So we got the Assault Intercessors with jump packs. That's a new thing with their bolt pistols. We have the Ballistus Dreadnought, Blade Guard Squad, Eliminator Squad. It's very good value in this squad, guys. The fact that they get to move, they have good long range weapons, actually have multi damage. Make sure that they actually brought those. And they brought sniper rifles. And the fact that they can move and shoot is pretty great. Then we got Eradicator Squad. I mean, I think they're still all right. They're pretty cheap. And then we got Lancers. I hate / love the Lancers. Then we got Redemptor Dreadnoughts, Repulsor Executioners, Sanguinary Guard. So he's bringing like long range firepower here, and then he's also bringing Dreadnoughts, so you can kind of play both parts of the game since he is still a Blood Angel. Stern Guard Veteran Squad, and then a Vanguard Veteran with jump packs. Yeah, so we don't see those named, straight up, Sanguinary Guard and such. They're still very expensive, but people do take advantage of the Blood Angels kind of rules right now. As a whole, though, with the list, when you're running that many Beast Snagga units and you still have the Nobz built into that, you're just winning all over the battlefield in those skirmishes and those fights. Those long range firepower like the Lancers are really not going to have too much fun. All you're going to do is pop trucks, and then Maz and the Beast Boss and Squiggle Sword, those Funeral Pins are going to kind of tank a lot of that. So we have the 100 points put up on there. Not surprising at all. Let's look at his third matchup. Go through this kind of quick. Oops. And we have Death Guard. So speaking of one of our predators, let's see what this list looks like. Lord of Virulence. Okay, I do think it's I think this is kind of along the meta actually to bring him. Mortarion. I think the other one is I'm bringing this. I remember his name when we go through this. Death Guard, Hellbrute, Predator Destructor. Okay, unless I'm missing something, I don't know anything about that. Death Shroud Terminator, Big Squad, Floated Bloat Drones. These guys are great value for 100 points. But they did bring the like Splitters, Plague Burst Crawlers, triple Plague Burst Crawlers, and then triple Nurglings. This list would be kind of potent if it had brought more Terminators. As a whole, though, I mean, unless I'm missing something that's the firepower, it's interesting that he's really just trying to shoot with this list, because everything on here is actually just kind of shooting. So what normally would become a problematic kind of, I don't know if I can reliably fight and trade with you, these units are getting kind of traded into, because all of these profiles are pretty much anti-monster, anti-vehicle, going to get destroyed by the Beast Snaggas, or even though the Nobz during a war, just through pure attrition volume, are going to tear down through those vehicles. You still have to play the mission no matter how much firepower you have. So it was a different kind of Death Guard list, but hey, he still got the job done. Still happy to see it. That was his third game, but his fourth game, we don't see that guy. He's not here. And then his fifth and final game was going into Necrons. So we got Emotex, the Stormlord, Nemesis, Zandrik, Orkind Diviner, Cycle, whatever, Slimeancer, whatever. Transcendent Catan. Okay, and then what he has is guys. Okay, and then the enhancement. So we got Immortals. I don't know what I'm missing about Immortals, but you just don't see those guys on the list. 2, 3. Oh, 3 big bricks of Necron Warriors. Oh, talk about foot slog. 2 units of Scarab Swarms. 1, 2 death marks. So these guys are pretty much their way of playing the secondary game. These 4 units right here, they're trying to play secondaries, trying to play the rest of the table, as all of this just walks up into the middle of the table with these characters. We don't see I'm having a brain fart right now. I don't know why, but we're not seeing the Crypto Thralls. Yeah, if we had the Crypto Thralls, these guys would be even more potent. But hey, without the Crypto Thralls, Orks actually do have the capability of actually tearing through this. So I want to see what he put up. Yeah, he put up 100 points on that. Let's say Orks with that volume, if you don't have that Feel No Pain, you're getting torn through. So great job to Matt Barnett. I really liked your list as well. It was very fun. Oops, I got rid of that your list. Really like that list, even though it's a Beast Snagga list, and people are like, hey, we don't want to see Beast Snagga time. Still want to show it, because if you're still being Beast Snaggas, you can see that even the Beast Snagga full archetypal kind of list, are willing to and are adding Warbosses plus Nobz Scapel units into their list for the ability to have that AP, because you don't want your whole army to be just -1 AP, right? That's not something we really want to love and go into right now. So that being said, let's take a look at everybody's favorite billion-dollar clown farm, Tyler Russo. I'm sure he's going to go over his own video, but I'm going to take a crack anyways at it and to see what he says. Let me see what your comment says. But I'm going to just take a peep and give my own little minor thoughts without all the context, and just give it a great shot. He goes, can you get more than 1 extra WAAAGH with extra banners? So each guy with the Nob WAAAGH banner would be able to declare his own WAAAGH for his unit. So hypothetically, yes. Yes, and that would be awesome. I think that's going to be an interesting tech piece because everybody knows going second as an org player can be detrimental as people trying to bait and trigger that wall on a defensive mechanism, and then just kind of play KG against you is going to be problematic. But if you can constantly threaten the wall because you have the non with wall banner, it's a different. So I'm very much going to be practicing with mine because it is a skill tech piece as well. So Tyler Russo, everybody knows him. Of course you do. Let's take a peep at his list. So it's a Beast Boss, Captain Badrock, Maz Scragbag, Nobz Smash King, and Warboss Kill Chopper. That's what I like to see. And a War Boss. This looks familiar. Beast Snaggas, 1, 2, 3 Chucks, Flash Gits, 1, 2, Gretchen, Nobz, the Scapel unit, 1, 2 3-man units of Squigs, and 1 big brick of Squighog boys, 2 Stormboys, and 2 Warbikers. Okay, this list is super familiar. If you've been paying attention to WAAAGH Wednesdays, this is very similar to what Brad Chester has been running. Not exactly the same, but very, very like 95% the same. This is actually very similar to what I ran at my GT, about 95% the same as well. So yeah, I'm very familiar with this list and what it's really trying to do. It's kind of pretty much tools. Everything here, you know exactly what it can do. Squighog boys here, 1 brick to really deliver and kind of kill something you have to deal with. Beast busting that boss on foot is really trying to tear down monster vehicles that are, outside of the wall even sometimes on his own, not really trying to skirmish with elite units, really trying to just focus down on those kind of vehicles or monsters. Nobz is my favorite Scapel unit. When you run those Terminators, you have just enough transports to kind of take over the board and stage, but not really like clog yourself up. And then the Flash gets to really respect the shooting lane so people can't just countercharge you willy-nilly. And you can do damage at range that you really need. And even though it's not reliable and often that we want to use CP on Overwatch, Flash gets will give you the return if you do choose to do it. So let's see what some of his matchups were real quick, and then hopefully there's a video on it and we can see the thoughts on that as well. So we have the Strike Force Invasion Fleet, Death Leaper, Hive Tyrant is one I put. Yep, Feel No Pain, Nero Tyrant, 2 Gargoyles. Those guys are annoying for their movement. Barbed Hyrule. So these guys are Forge World model. They're like shooting and fighting, multi-damage guns and such. Barb Gaunts, Biovores, Maliceptors. Maliceptors are super annoying if you're an Ork player. They have like an aura -1 to hit, and they've built up 4-up and vuln. Then we have 2 Neurolictors. Oh yeah, handy dandy Norn Emissary, Pyrovores, Ripper Swarms, and then a big brick of Zoanthropes for those lance cannons. There's not a lot to hold the midboard in this list though. Once the Orks start staging and kind of pushing out, there's really just the Norn. I mean, even Barbed Hyrule, he's not going to want to get anything close to anything be Snagger related. And the Hive Tyrant's getting torn apart as well if he does. You do have the Death Leaper. For the most part, stuff like the Death Leaper is more like anti-shooting armies. That they really like, oh, I have to get close to that, and if I can't shoot him away, I have to charge him. Orks are like, cool, you're going to give me him? I'll charge him. I'll beat him up. So that's great. And Barbed Hyrule's profile isn't going to be a problem for anything on Tyler's list. So, yeah, Orks, I could see this being a very kind of more of a Tyranid kind of problem here on this list. But let's go into his second matchup. Right there, you really just have to focus about that Norn Emissary. Did he choose to engage with that? I'd like to know his perspective. I don't think I would have based off what the rest of the list had. You can kind of just run over it, run game all over the rest of that table. So I don't think I would have engaged with the Norn, but I don't know what he did. And that's what I like. That's what I actually want to hear. That's why I want to go over this. So we got Eldar Flash World. We got Fusion, Ying Khan, Artarg Wayleaper, Farseer, Spirit Seer, Swooping Hawk, Warp Spider, Wraith Guard, and they have the Wraith cannons. Okay. Night Spinners. These guys are kind of making their way more and more, I think, just for that reducing movement. And then the Warwalkers with the Lances. So, yeah, I think Wraith Guard, melee Wraith Guard would have been a little bit more threatening. But even then, how are you really? No. Even with you're not reliably just popping our trucks as you need, and the Squighog boys and Mazrog making his way up the field. Orks are always just gonna be okay with playing the mission against something like this. You do have the Yin Karn. You do have to worry about where he's gonna end up after they're shooting. You might have to play cheeky with your Grots, maybe put him in reserve, stuff like that, just so that he can't kind of shoot him away to get to the end back to your table. But as a whole, once he does stage, there's multiple units that actually can deal with Young Karn. I mean, even the Flash Gits could actually put a pretty dirty number into her. not to mention Nobz, you know, they're looking at this and they're like, well, if I can't get to the Wraith Guard, you know, the Incarn's another option that I might see. So as a whole, playing the mission, moving around on this, Orks are going to run train with that. Even our little skirmishes, quick hog boys, not enough firepower on this list to really deal with all that. And yeah, I mean, how do you do? What do you do? Yep, he put up 100 points against that. Okay, no problem. I'm really interested to see what he lost actually into. So let's see his fourth game. We have the Chaos Knights. We have the Night Rampager. These Chaos Knights, you know, you're like, oh, big knights, you're not that threatening because you're slow, and I don't have to. These guys can straight run through terrain pieces. So don't forget that when you have that Rampager, you better hope that you go first as Ork players, really, in like most of the time. So we have War Dog Stalker, and then we have a bunch of brigands again for that reliable profile. They're hitting on twos, Meltas, chain guns, carnivores. You know, two Nurglings because I feel like that's mandatory for those. So this is a pretty competitive list. Right, you know, this is a highly competitive Chaos Knight list as well. Now, how would he deal with this? If you just get to take out that Rampager, these brigands are slowly just getting torn apart by the rest of the list as long as he doesn't roll too hot in his Melta shots. As a whole, you know, who goes first, what the mission is would really matter a lot, in my opinion, with these knights sometimes. But they don't generally have the capability to just shoot everything away that they really want to. Especially when they're inside of vehicles, and then the 5-up on the 5-up for the Squig Hog boys, and Maz himself just being super annoying. He can go either way sometimes if he's going into, you know, if he starts just running through brigands and stuff or carnivores, if he doesn't end up going straight into the Rampager, he's just by himself or just running shop and absorbing all that damage just from him alone. If he starts engaging in his own way, or if he gets, you know, I doubt it, but if he got ingressed in, he could just stay away from the Rampager, let everybody else kill him if he wanted to. But what is this? And then his fourth list? Yeah, that was his third. So his fourth matchup, he's got 100 into his third game as well. And his fourth matchup here, I wanted to kind of cover was, let's see what it was. World Eaters. So we were just talking about how World Eaters were actually an army that's here to be respected because they're trying to do a lot of the similar things that the Orks do. So let's see what was going on with this list. So we got Angron, Karn the Betrayer, just straight beat stick. Favorite of Corn with the World Eater Juggernaut. So this guy's just like a solo. I'm pretty sure he doesn't go anywhere. He just kind of beat sticks by himself with like 11 attacks or something. And then favorite of Corn just means I think he just gets to re-roll those corn dice. And then the Berserker Glaive is that really important enhancement that I see goes to max of executions. He can just take down entire Ork units by himself to a certain extent. He's one of the few models that can just directly kill Mazrog also. So let's see how he's being delivered. So we got a Jackal unit, big brick Berserkers, another big brick Berserker. So one for Karn, one for the Master of Executions, two Rhinos, possibly for both of those. So then you got to pop the Rhino, and then those. So in a similar way, like how Orks are like, oh, you have the transport, you have to pop that, and then the guys in there, you have to kill them, and then even if you don't, the character in there and the leftover guys can crump. That's kind of exactly what these World Leaders are trying to do here as well. Because remember, they get advance in charge for the whole game. They can get to sustain 5s. And then they can bring Angron back to life so he can be their version of Maz in like a different way because he could die and just come back and keep being annoying. So we have 8-bound, even though Maz is way more durable. I'm just saying for his annoyance factor, distraction factor, countercharging factor, that. So we got 8-bound. And something to keep in mind is 8-bound also give that reroll once to wound aura, I believe as well. So and then Mauler Fiends. So the World Eater Mauler Fiends are actually pretty freaking awesome. They get a bit once they actually something starts taking damage, maybe you got in shooting or in a fight with something else, these guys get capability for like additional +2, I think, to charges and such. Ingressing these guys in is most of the time what I think them doing. Or you can auto advance 6 as a World Eaters player with a strat. Advance and charge, auto advance 6, get the Mauler Fiend capabilities, run in there, tank shock with strength 14. So that's a very sleeper unit and very cheap unit that if it starts taking long bomb charges into Orks, they can start dissecting them in their own kind of weird way. So I'd like to hear how this game went for him. We can see that he actually did end up dropping this game with 32 points. I don't know whatever happened. He's a great player, so I would just really like to know what happened here. I'm pretty familiar with this matchup, so I could hear just dice could be a factor too, and maybe Tyler went first. I think that going second, in my opinion, I think kind of helps this game. So with that being said, let's look at his let's go through the last of his matchups real quick where he still good wins. So we got Chaos Knights after that, Rampager, a bunch of Brigands again, more Carnivores, and then Nurgling. So very similar to the other list that we've seen, just with just a different kind of ratio of carnivores and brigands. We already know that he can kind of tear those down with all the different kind of variety, as long as he puts Maz where he needs to be to soak up that damage. Because you don't really freely want those brigands putting all their small arms fire into like everything and their meltas into all the Queen Hog boys. But as Maz is kind of pressuring them, they're gonna have to try to kill him. So they'll end up doing it and they'll fail. Like they'll end up trying to kill him and they'll fail. So that's what I'd like to hear how those games went though. And then last but not least, he had a game into the Necrons. So we have the Lord, Technomanters, we have the Catan, we have Doomstalker, Reanimator, Scarab Swarm, Spiders. There we go with the Crypto Thralls, Flayed Ones for mission, Destroyers, some more heavy destroyers. Do they have different weapons? Nope. And then we have more heavy destroy. I'm like, okay, more heavy destroyers. So we got, yeah. And then we have one big brick of Lich Guard with the shields, Tomb Blaze for mission, playing the mission, and then a Triax Stalker. So we have a good amount of kind of range anti-tank shots, at least for Necrons, relatively, right? They're trying to, more than other Necrons lists I've seen, they're actually trying to play the missions and not commit to just all straight bricks. That being said, you know, once the Catan does go down, which me myself took down the Catan with like the same exact list Tyler had in one turn, with between like Maz, Beast, Snagga, I mean even a flash kit or any kind of grenade or whatever, you just pretty much just throw damage into it. You can take down the Catan in one turn. Once you have that, you're gonna start taking take a straight up take over this table. I mean, you can ignore the one brick of Lich Guard and then just kind of take out everything else. Nothing else going to push you off them. You're going to make it onto the objectives. They're not going to pop your chugs good enough, and you know there's a chance you can even hide on one turn. So great job there taking out the Necrons. I don't think Necrons are like a huge problematic unit for Orks, but hey, okay. And that was Tyler Russo's thing. I think he did a great job as a whole. I would really like to hear how he did, how those Chaos Knights games went, and how he ended up having a hard time with that World Eaters list. So very impressive, very impressive. Like I really enjoyed this Richie list, and I enjoyed the other list I brought Ghazghkull this week. So let me look at the chats real quick, and then I'm going to give my closing thoughts for what I was thinking about going over this today. For his Chaos Knights, Kendall, but shots can be ensued if you're wanting to use the strat a lot due to our bad leadership. Something to be aware of. Yes, they can. They do want to battle shock you, and it does kind of come in more later in the game. But usually when you play into the Chaos Knights, it's like a front-loaded, heavy kind of game where you and them start taking casualties right away. But that is something to keep in mind, that if we do get in a prolonged fight with them, then their battle shock capabilities start to compound and become more problematic for us. So that being said, let me give my closing thoughts on this, guys, right? So as a whole, whoa, great job by the Orks. You're sitting at a 53% win rate. Things to keep in mind is we're aware now as a community that having an army of AP -1 can be problematic. At the same time, Beast Snaggas and Feel No Pains are going to be fantastic no matter what. They can be relied upon. Sometimes just having a straight data sheet that's fantastic per point is where you want to be. If you're thinking about how can I start using Ghaz, think about bringing him in from strategic reserves. Remember that if he ingresses in the following turn, you can here we go with him. As for the Nobz are one of those units that they might be a little bit premium, but at the same time, you know, you kind of need that because they're one of the only units that do what they're trying to do. They're trying to what I call scapel out a problematic unit because they have a diverse profile, as in they're good strength with a good volume of attacks with a decent amount of damage with a decent amount of AP. All that puts together means you can look at different things on the battlefield and go, ooh, dude, sheer volume, I can kind of handle that, right? And that's why you are paying for that, because they're a diverse tool compared to other units and then the Orks where you're like, I know exactly what this is doing. I know exactly what this is good into doing. Now I'm one of those units that can go into multiple things, but I really like to use them as that thing's a problem, I'm going to kill them. As for the flash kits, I think it really comes down to you as a player. Can you take advantage of them and optimize them? How does the terrain you're playing on work? A lot of the time, as you can think, you're going to place them in a firing lane where you want to be respected and kind of control that part of the board. If you're playing against the army that's trying to countercharge you can stage there those flash kits and tell them, hey, if you move and try to countercharge my staging units, I'm going to shoot you. Flash kits can be used in that way, or they can be used, hey, I've jumped out, I'm lethaling you, I'm shooting you down at range, and then you can kind of try to shoot me, or I'm going to charging up the board because I'm technically Nobz. right? People are always scared about flash kits of, oh, what if they get shot? Well, then the things that are right in getting into combat are not. So you just kind of deal with that. And then as for Mega Nobz, I think that's another skill thing. Do I think they're going to be everywhere? No. I think it really does come down to the players know what they're going into, what their problematic units are, but they could possibly be answers for maybe Astra Militarum being a problem, maybe even Leagues of Voltan, a little bit of help there as they have built-in AP and better armor saves and still have a good durability with their toughness. So, and the Nob with Wall Banner. I mean, the Nob with Wall Banner is showing that he is not a fluke type of unit. He showed up again on a very competitive list, but I do think that he actually requires a certain skill. As in, you really have to know when to declare that wall. Are you reserving that unit? Are you just declaring him? Are you just paying attention and going, hey, putting him on the line? I'm gonna, here we go. He has follow me lads built into this brick of 20 boys or whatever he's in. But if we seen he was in the Nobz unit, so that was interesting as well. I wasn't taking that into real consideration, but hey, I might have to give it a second look. So as a whole, what's the declaration of the day? AP is back on the menu, boys. And Ghazghkull with his lethal aura is very important. And still playing the MSU truck spam, but playing a transport version with more battle wagons seems to be a very interesting thing to do. So let me just take a peep at chats real quick. What's your favorite lift boss? When I lift the chopper, whoa! And I think you were talking about weightlifting. It's funny you say that because I don't really have like a favorite lift anymore. I think I just take pride in doing a lot of pull-ups, or as many as I can, because I'm kind of a bigger fella and usually don't see big people on pull-up bars. So I don't have a favorite lift. I guess lifting my own fatness, lifting my own big ass is well, my favorite thing to do. What's your opinion on Squighog boys and MSU and Nobz Smash Squig? That's funny because I've run that before, and I believe other people are starting to run that more and more. What do I think about that? I think you give away to assassinate. I think at the same time, you're making that cheap unit that technically, if it lost to one Squighog boy, we're talking about a 3-man unit, just so you guys know. If the question was if a 3-man unit and a one Squighog Nobz Squig went together, how would that look? How does that look? Is you have an optimized skirmishing unit, but at the same time, you are possibly giving up secondaries while retaining the threat of that small unit if it starts to lose a couple of squigs to kind of small arms fire, because the Nob in that unit giving them, a 33% increase to their damage by giving them +1 to hit, and then you have the capability to unbridled carnage. He himself gives a nice little handful more of attacks. So as a whole, I like it, especially if you're playing on like maybe a 1,000-point game. I think that's actually a really interesting kind of thing you could do, or a 1,500-point game where you don't want to pay for the whole unit. Maybe your terrain isn't optimized for that, or the rest of your list doesn't fit. I think it's great, and you could still bring Edwap as Kill Choppa. So overall, do I like it? Yeah, I think it's good. Like, how good? Not really sure yet. I've ran it. At the same time, it's like, could I just use another unit of bikers? Maybe, but that's on the menu for sure, boys. So keep in mind, guys, AP's on the menu. The meta's still open for what melee units can be used. It's not all about the B Snaggas. Does it matter a lot? Yes. Do our transports matter a lot? Yes. But there's still a lot of other ways to play. There's other lists that we've seen. There's some little kill rigs on the horizon. There's just in general a bunch of different ways that we can keep playing the game with Rugged Truck Squig Boys, Truck Buggies. Rugged Truck Squig Buggies. You've seen a Burna-Bommer today. And even looters have been showing up with the shock attack guns. So don't lose faith. Keep your eye on the rise of the green tide. And one thing to keep in mind is don't cross the wall, because we knock your teeth out. Whoa!